Hello everyone, it's Tonya with Scribbles in Time. I am so excited to do a flip through of my latest journal. And this journal is a little bit of a variation of the typical Tonya journals that I make, where I do I still did the two journals into one book. But just to give you a little story, this book cover has just caused so much, wow, I've really struggled with this book cover. So the way I had originally started this journal off, I had a lady reach out and ask me if I do custom orders, and I was explaining to her that I don't, because I just don't like the pressure of trying to make a journal customized for a particular person, because for me that just creates some kind of I don't know, I just like being able to create a journal. If someone sees it and is interested in it, then I'll put it in my Etsy shop and they can purchase it. But I just struggle doing custom journals. I've tried it several times and I struggle with it. So anyway, she told me her style. She told me she kind of wanted a smaller journal. So I pulled this out and kind of grouped these different journals together. And I even had a whole concept in mind of the type of journal that I wanted to do. So the name of this journal is called What Matters to Elise. And in my mind, this was a concept journal. I kind of had, someone who I named Elise in thought as I made this journal, and kind of customized it around Elise and what my thoughts was for the story, for her story. But anyway, so I had pulled out these books, and this journal cover right here, when it came time for me to start attaching the layering to the front, I could not do it. I absolutely love this cover. And so when I get like that, I don't know, I just, for whatever reason, when I feel that way, I just cannot alter something. And this was just one of those situations. So I created what I am calling a book belt. And so I'm not saying that I'm the first person to ever create it. I've never seen one, but I'm sure other people have thought of this before. But for me, this book started developing kind of a gator mouth. And so I started thinking about myself, and when I'm starting to get to the point where I can't, what do? We put on a belt. So I created a book belt. So this was how I got around not covering up this cover. You can see how grungy it is. It is clean. I've cleaned the book. But man, it just has a feeling. There was even a few places where it felt like there was a texture on it. I don't know what it was, but I was able to clean it off. The front is worse wear than the back. The back is not quite as grungy. The spine's pretty worn out. So in my mind, I'm thinking this probably set on its back and probably was exposed to the sun on the spine in the front. But anyway, so I could not cover up this cover, and I struggled with it. I actually created what I was originally going to do was do it to look like a stack of papers. I even have it sitting here. So yeah, I was creating a stack of papers to give this the look of it being like a stack of papers, and even a little box that was, put some stuff in. It was going to go on the top, and I was going to do this whole stacked look, and just could not bring myself to attach this. So I then decided to put a string underneath this writing journal, not to tie there. I'm using it there, and I'll explain that in a second, but to pull forward and tie across this. And that was going to be my little way of doing this look without actually attaching it to the cover. Does that make sense? I don't know. I'm rambling. Anyway, it was not a functional way of doing the book, though, because then when this was tied on, every time you tried to flip it open, this stuff kind of slid. To me, it just was not a good functional way to use this book. So I went back to the drawing board, so to speak, and made a book belt. And this is a very crudely made book belt, and I'm going to snip off the string because there's a string kind of hanging down here that's going to bug me. So give me a second to clip this string off. I'm sorry. So anyway, this is a very crudely made book belt. You'll see. I wanted it to look homemade. There's a bundle of twigs stitched on here with some leather. I did use a fair amount of leather on, I say a fair amount. I used some leather in this book. I don't know that it's what some of you would call a fair amount, but so yeah, the way I did this little book belt is I made a loop here to serve kind of as the buckle, and that is made out of leather. There is a beautiful brooch here on the front. I did not want, I started to put a little tab here. I even have it sitting right here. It says lovely. I started to stitch this little tab here like that. Thought that was lovely. and, but man, I just thought this brooch is beautiful. Oh, it's so dainty and delicate, and it just went along with Elise and the story that I had in mind. So, there's the brooch. The green there. My lighting's not ever the best in the world, but the bundle of twigs that I bundled together and stitched on with a piece of a little strip of leather. Here's the back of it, and you can see this is kind of a padded. You can see the brooch, the pin there coming through. That can be removed. Some vintage trim here. And some old, I guess this would be considered upholstery fabric. And then on the back end, I did this little strip. And then the strip of leather. And I even made a little belt loop. And on the belt loop, I used this metal trapezoid shaped button. And I stitched it on with some waxed linen thread and put some little pearl styled seed beads on there. And the way I do the, let me see if I can, okay. So the way I do the book belt is I line up this bundle of twigs coming down the edge of the spine. So I lay it like that, and that pretty much centers up the brooch. So I lay it like this, and then I just wrap this around. I feed the belt through this, and then back down through the loop. And there's room for this book to grow, even though it already has a gator mouth. But that's how it looks from the outside with the belt on. So that just kind of helps to hold this down a little bit better, and I just think it's the prettiest look against this cover. Again, the cover is a very, I'm saying unique because it's so worn. It's just a very unique shade of brown. This is for sure a one-of-a-kind book. There will never be another one like this, I can promise you. The spine, to me, the book was so old that the spine worried me a little bit, so I double reinforced it with fabric on the inside. Let me show you this. Y'all, this book, I just could not, I don't know if any of you know what I'm talking about, but when something's speaking to you, I just could not alter this, and that's just the way my brain is. So there's double fabric in here, and you can actually see a little bit of the inside of the original book cover there, and then you can see the 2 layers of fabric. On the back, you can probably see it a little bit better. So I used handmade paper here, and I'm weird about glue showing. Like, I'm weird about that. I've actually gotten journals from people where the glue is just like squished all out on the paper and all, and that's fine. I'm not knocking anyone. Everybody's style is their own, but I'm weird about glue showing. You can see some shininess here on this, and it's not glue. It's whatever had been on whatever that is, it had been on this book. And I scrubbed it off of the cover, which is why this is so worn. I don't really know what that was. I don't know if someone tried to seal the book at some point in its lifetime, but you can kind of see the shininess if I angle it just right. And that is not glue. That is whatever was originally, I guess, coating this book. And on this back, I used the handmade paper. I did not hand make that paper. It is gorgeous. There is a slight, almost a velvety feel to it. It feels so good. And I ordered this through an Etsy shop, and I check all the time to see if they have any more. They do not. And I keep checking their stock to see have they gotten any more in, or have they made more, or whatever. And they do not. But anyway, you can see the double fabric there where I double secured the spine. And then we'll go back to the front. So I did keep the string on here as I had originally planned to use it for the front, but instead I went ahead and pulled it around to the back like this so that someone could tie this journal. If they start adding stuff to it, they can tie it to keep it tight, or they can snip the string off. I would snip it about right there up to the edge of the book, and then I would fray it so that it was all frayed, and that just creates another layer, just something else for the eye to go to. I like that look. So when you're looking at the book from the outside, you'll see the charms that are hanging from the book, and so I want to point those out real quick. There's 2 charms hanging from this writing journal that hang out. There's, I call this my whimsical beads. I've started using these. They look like little skulls, which means they probably should be used in maybe Halloween journals, but I don't care. When I feel the urge to use something, I use it. And I love these little beads. They're whimsical. They're different. They're just a touch of some unexpected something that makes your eye say, what? You got to do a double take. And then there's like a rusty washer or a bolt or something. And those are hanging from the centers of the writing portion of the journal. And then in the art portion of the journal, there's a bell. So I point these out now because you can hear this bell as I'm moving the book around. So I like to show what that is. And it is a really cool old looking bell. And then there is a glass tear-shaped, kind of an iridescent bead hanging there as well. Just love those. Anyway, so then when you flip it up, you can untie this or snip those off. And in the writing portion of the journal, I have used some of my stash. I love this cool fabric. So I've reinforced this old book, which is also beautiful in and of itself. I can't right at this second make out the name of this book. I'm sure that with better lighting and reading glasses on, I could, but I don't know the name of this book, but it's really cool. I believe it's a series, and I think I have about 4 of these book covers. And this is cross stitch. Let me hold it up so that you can see a little bit better. But it is just beautiful cross stitching. It's crudely cut. It's supposed to be that way. This is supposed to be a book that someone used many, many years ago and just have stuck little things into. Here's a beautiful piece of vintage fabric trim on that page. A little score paper with a stamp as a page tab. This is some of the, I mentioned earlier I did use some types of art paper in both portions of the book. So this is some watercolor paper here, but it is lined with a little place for the date and a bottle, a milk cap, a cigar band on the other side of that paper with this beautiful vintage crochet. Beautiful vintage trim on the edge of this page. So much doesn't show up well on camera. It's just, you can't feel. I wish you could reach through the camera and feel this fabric here is so thin. There's like a little hole in it right there that is just, I mean, it's so thin. It is just old. The stories this stuff could tell. On this Uno score pad, this is the center of the first signature where the first bead is hanging, and I did double stamps that are kind of the same theme so that both of those showed. My goal was for them to show against that piece of lace there that has the earthy tone green in it. This is the other part of that really thin fabric. The crochet. This is a little metal tab here, and it's green. I don't know how well that's showing up. And then this is a crocheted, it's like a vertical stack of squares with flowers crocheted on it. And I have these in my shop. I like those either to go on a cluster or as a tab on a page. I also have some of these in my shop. Now, Emily, I think, sent me this particular one. She has some deeper reds, I believe, in her mix. But these are the little clear bingo chips. very old and vintage. They have some old like metal around them. The set that I have came with these magnetic wands that you would run over to pick up all your chips. That's why they have the metal on them, I guess. And you would just wave the wand over it when the game's over, and it picks up all of the chips with a wave of the wand. I love bingo. That was one of my grandma, Meemaw. Y'all heard me talk about Meemaw. That was one of her favorite things to do, was to go to the VFW and play bingo. When we moved up here, the Moose Lodge here has bingo every Tuesday night. She loved bingo. So I always think of Meemaw when I see bingo. That's the other part of the cross stitch. And then this material here, ooh, I love it. It's very thin. I've used it in journals before. I'm down now to, I think this is my last one that has the trim on it. And I still have probably 3 or 4 more of these that doesn't have the trim. I might have one more that has the trim. Oh, I'm not in frame. Sorry. Let me scooch up a little bit. So, yeah, see the trim? And then this next page, I stitched on a piece of bark. And when you're in person looking at the book as a whole, you can see that there's bark over here. And I just thought it tied it together so well. Especially with this fabric here, it just really, there's blacks in the bark and then all the earthy tones, and I just thought it looked so good against that fabric there. And this is a piece of paper that describes me. It says when the going gets tough, and then on the flip side of it, it says the tough go shopping, and how appropriate that I use a little shopping tab right there. This is a beautiful piece of embroidery. Hold that up so you can see. And the reverse side of it is also pretty. It's so vibrant. Look at that. It's very pretty. And then some vintage trim there. Also very thin. And this fabric with the pretty flowers on it. And then here I did a, this paper already had, it's, you know, it was like notebook paper that has the holes coming down the side. And so I did a piece of leather, little piece of leather I punched out and did it like a hole reinforcer, and then ran this polka dotted ribbon through that as a tab. And then some beautiful little eyelet trim. Can you see that? So pretty. And then this is the old Tweedy Lumber Company receipt. These came from Emily's shop, Junk Journal Inspirations. And so I secured it by putting these little, to make it look hinged on, I put 3 of them there, and then a solid piece on the flip side. Let me show you. See? And then this is the center of the second signature. And over here I put one of the bows that I have in my Etsy shop there as a page, as a little flip tab. And then I secured the back of it where I stitched that on with some, here we go, can you see? Piece of tape there. Some more of the beautiful lace trim coming down that page. And then these are some tickets that say love and hope. And so I backed them onto some of the pretty white cotton and kind of frayed it around the sides and doubled it up and put it as a top tab on this page. Thought that turned out very pretty. And again, the pop of white, it's subtle, and I know on camera it probably doesn't show very well, but in person I've just tried to pop all the colors that coordinate. We have the black and earth tone, the black and earth tone here, and then the bark, and then the touches of the white. And that's a beautiful flower trim there. Beautiful piece of lace. And then these butterflies I have in my shop. Typically I grunge these up a little bit, but I like the vibrant color, that pop of vibrant here. So I did 2 different colors. This had the kind of the red writing. This is the other side of that paper, the notepad I talked about earlier. And so yeah, the butterfly on this side has the kind of a turquoisey color. And then when you flip it, I did the red, the kind of a red tone one on the back. And then on the other side of this watercolor paper, there's one of my cloth tabs. That's fabric. And it just says Scribbles in Time. And then the other piece of that very thin material. And then there's the back cover of that book. And then there's that string that I was talking about that could be snipped off. I'm leaving it on there just in case anyone gets this journal. They can have the option to either snip it off themselves, or they can use this to tie that book down in case they add stuff to it and fill it up, which I hope someone will do. Okay, going into the art portion of the book, I didn't do this portion very thick because, again, this is a small book. I did include a couple little sketches in here, and the very first page has this fabric on here that has the raised stitching. And then here is one of the sketches. I did a tree. I did that in my last book, I believe it was, as well. I'm really on this tree kick right now. I don't know if I'm looking forward to the leaves coming back on our trees or what, but I'm really on a... And there's the piece of bark. And I did some stamping. And, of course, on this, this is all mixed media paper in here so that you can sketch and paint on it. And I put fabric. I reinforced all of the folds of the paper with different strips of fabric to help secure those in case you do watercoloring or whatnot and you wet the paper. I wanted the paper to, you know, have a little bit of durability to it. So I ran fabric down each of the folds. And then I've gessoed back here so that I could do my sketch on there. And then, of course, I sealed it so that the charcoal wouldn't rub off. And then here we've got the more art space, and you can see the stitching of the bark on the back. It's really a neat look. And then the Viewmaster pocket I've hinged on with some fabric, and then on the other side there's like a dolly. So I laid a dolly and the Viewmaster pocket together and hinged them with this piece of muslin. I just slid a guest check in here for writing space or whatnot. This is one of the bags that I showed in my video when I was showing the stuff that's in my Etsy shop. These bags, I love these handles. Now, the way the handles came on this bag, they would have stuck out too far, so I had to do a little bit of surgery on it. So what I did is I cut the handles down and reattached them, and you can look on the inside. I don't know how well it's going to show on camera, but there's some fabric and paper and things like that that are stitched on to secure the handles from where I've moved them downwards. And I even offset them just a little bit so that when the book is closed, you can see that they're like staggered. I actually had to shorten the width of the bag also, so it's got some stitching running along the side, which is probably hard to see on camera. Here's one of the fabric master buck tabs on the edge, and then these are in my shop. These are the, I believe these are called laser cut. They're wooden keys. And then inside of this bag, I love this bookmark. So I made a bookmark using leather, and I just thought it turned out so pretty. My husband, for Valentine's Day, bought me a bookmark that I have been watching for probably a year on eBay. I don't have it in here. It's very fragile. It's very old, but it's on leather. So I tried to kind of replicate the look of that bookmark. And so that's what I've done here. This is a piece of leather. And up here at the top, there's this rusty, very wide, I don't know if this would be a spacer or a nut. I don't know. A washer, I guess. It's very thick. It's thicker than like a small washer. But anyway, maybe it's because it's a big washer. Anyway, a beautiful picture of a horse. And then a piece of leather down here on the bottom as well. And it is just made, I rounded the corners, and it is just made, it's pliable. I love this bookmark. I'll be making many more of these. I really like this. And then it just slides into this bag, and it can be used anywhere in the journal. This is some beautiful material. Can you see the little rosebuds on it? Very pretty. And then this is another sketch I did of a tree, and there is some stamping, and of course the grungy fabric coming down the center of the page, and then along the edge I have attached this metal, this grungy metal. Let me kind of turn it sideways. And so it's attached along the edge, and there's some twine that has it actually tied to the edge of the page, like that. And then these are in my Etsy shop. These pulls right here, they're metal. And this particular one has a hole on each end, so you could even hang a dangle or something from that end. I didn't on this one, and I didn't because this was the look I wanted. But it does have that, you know, that function that you can do that. And so I've sketched a tree. There's gesso back here. There's stamping kind of peeking through here and here. And then when you flip the page, you can see where the holes are where I stitched that on. And so I used rusty washers to reinforce those holes. And then this is the center of this signature where the little glass bead hangs from, and the bell. And then on this page, I have layered in, I was trying to do a layered look here. So I layered in this wrapping paper, this vintage wrapping paper that I have. And it's just a beautiful pattern on that. And I've done stamping and the gesso. You can feel the texture of the gesso. And then up here on the corner of the page, I have these in my Etsy shop, and I grunged it up and used it as a page tab up here. And it is a butterfly. It's embroidered on felt. And so it's kind of grungy and just neat. It just draws the eye. And that's what I like about doing this style of book, is you just try to draw the eye into every direction to create a story. Now here, I just got my shipment in from, I ordered a whole bunch of accent pieces and trims and all kind of really cool stuff from India, and I just got it in. My intentions are to separate it up and put some of it in my Etsy because it's more than I could ever use. I also struggle with the whole bohemian style. It's beautiful. I love it. So because I love it, I had to order me one of Kathleen Sunby's amazing boho journals. It's just not the style I'm drawn to make. And I'm maybe one day going to challenge myself, but we all know how I do with challenges. So I'm probably going to put a lot of this in my shop. But this all just came in, and it is just so pretty. I do think it's kind of cool to do that touch of elegance thrown in with all the rustic grunge. I don't know, I really like I don't know, I just like that one little touch of elegance to be thrown in. It just kind of throws you, you know, it makes you do a double take, I think. So this is the other side of the bag, and you can see I've just torn the edge of it. I did surgery on it down here, and I lined the inside of it with fabric, which, well, I'll show you that in just a minute. Let me show you what's on the outside of it first. So there's fabric pieces, kind of like patches. There's just some pencil kind of scribbling on here. Here's my little Scribbles in Time, not emblem, little embossed Scribbles in Time, very subtle, with some washi tape. And then I did one of the little coin protectors, and I did one of those game tokens that I received from Emily inside of there, and I just grunged it up and put a little, wow, I turned the camera on and I swear I lose every word in my brain. Eyelet, I don't know. It's tied on with some wax linen thread. And then on the inside of this bag, like I said, I lined it with fabric. And that's not going to show up really well on camera. But in person, it's just a cool feel because it's fabric on the inside. Paper on the outside. Hear the crunch? Anyway. And then I just did a little crude notepad. It says, "You are a mountain mover." And I did it on one of my little tags that's in the Etsy shop. You can get these on Amazon, but they come in a huge bulk, so I broke them down and listed them some in my Etsy shop so that you don't have to order so many. A piece of seam binding there on the top. It comes with metal, like a metal tab, or I mean a metal wire on it, which I like using the metal, but just not on the actual tag. Does that make sense? On the back side of the bag, I've kind of patched on some more of the fabric. And then here is the doily that I had mentioned that's on the other side of that Viewmaster pocket. And it's just stitched onto some fabric there. And then this, so I had watched someone who had gotten one of my journals, and they were just saying that they feel kind of, I guess, nervous about putting their artwork in there because they don't want it to take away from the attention, or I don't know. They just weren't comfortable with doing artwork in the book and it's showing, I guess. So I've been trying to think of ways to help people who, you know, don't necessarily, they want to do artwork, but they don't necessarily want it to be a main thing when someone flips open the book. Maybe that's private to them. So I made this little page slip to fit over the page like this, and it serves as a tab, and it doesn't really come off. I mean, it's pretty stable on there, but it has a cigar label, a cigar box label there, and it's backed by a piece of the paper bag that I had torn off, and it's stitched across the top. And then on the back side, I did the Soul Custom Found and Processed fabric tag that's in my Etsy shop, with a piece of like cardstock that's scrunched up, and then that just kind of slides over that like that. And then that is it. That is the last page. Woohoo! So the very back piece of that fabric, and then we already talked about this. So that completes the flip through. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you can relate to what I was saying about the cover of the book and all of that. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. I am actively on Instagram now. I'm still learning, so be patient with me, but I would love it if you would search me out on Instagram. I don't even know if I'm good enough yet to post my link on here, but on Instagram I am Scribbles in Time. I'm also Scribbles in Time on Etsy. This journal will be listed in my Etsy, and I really appreciate all the new subscribers that I've gotten. I welcome you to my channel. I hope you enjoyed it, and y'all have a